All right, I'm so excited to dive in this conversation with you today. I like to imagine each of us carries a story of a tree inside of us, and so the roots, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, all shaped by the season and the sun and nature. And today we'll walk through Azsha Ray, and not just the milestones, but the real soul of it. So welcome here, Azsha. Why don't you give an introduction to yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Azsha Ray. My life actually, my name means life, joy, and hope. And I am in love with that because that actually describes my entire story in short. Um, and altogether, I'm excited to be here with my dear friend Annette. I am excited to just get a chance to authentically kind of let my tree kind of speak for itself. I am a life coach. I'm a personal trainer. I am aspiring to be an expressive therapist, which basically uses, the arts to kind of help people heal. I am a healing woman myself. I'm nowhere near finished. Um, and I am completely imperfect, but my life, my myself, me, who I am, Ajare, I'm made perfect because of the perfect person that I believe in, which is, Jesus Christ. So I owe everything to him, all my success, my achievements. So yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love Ray, as I did this morning, is a beautiful ray of sunshine.
Oh yeah.
And there's a saying in Japanese of Haraona, which is you're the woman of sun, right? And so I
Wow.
see Ray of you are a beautiful ray of sun. And thank you
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for sharing the definition of your name. And it brings so much meaning to our lives as well when we connect so deeply with our own name. So, what I want to dive in here today is let's even start um, deep underground. I mean, it's always the hardest place to go, but
Sure.
when we have that vulnerability to share um, what our roots are, and I see the roots as our values and even our tap roots and the stories that ground us. And every tree begins hidden in the soil. So tell me about the early influences that shaped who you are. So the people, the experience or beliefs that planted your deepest values.
Absolutely. We're diving straight into it. I love it. Um, the driving factor in my life for a very long time was my upbringing, was the things that I did not have, right? And so those being my mother and my father, I did not grow up with my mother and father. Um, they were they were local. They were, right down and up the street from me. But they, I think, made the best choice um, to allow my sister to raise me. My sister's name is Aaliyah Johnson. I love her to death. And from when I was 3 years old, she took me in to her care and she raised me to the best of, her ability with all of what she did and didn't have. And for that, I will, forever respect her and hold her near and dear in my heart. That'll always be my number one fan and supporter. And, that's like that's always gonna be my ace. Because I would not be where I am without her, you know. Now of course there have been so many journeys, even the one that I'm on today, where I am on this journey completely by myself. Um, and don't get me wrong, I have, the friends and, family and the love and all those things. But I think sometimes in life you are sent on ventures and quests to be by yourself and to be with yourself and to sit with all of what you need to heal from, all of, all of what you have experienced or who you've been, the good, bad, the ugly parts of you. So yeah, again, that was one of the largest driving factors in my life. Um, because who doesn't want to have parents? You know, now I love and I love and adore, my mother and father, at this point in my life, but that only came after the grief, that came after the healing, and that came years later. So we're talking about childhood, right? But that came when like my frontal lobe was developed.
Mm,
Like I had to teach myself things. I had to unlearn and relearn, and I had to hurt. I had
yeah.
to hurt. I had to be broken. My heart was broken for so long, and for so long, I couldn't explain it to anybody. I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't know. I didn't understand, because as a child, it feels like abandonment, like why didn't my parents want me? Like why didn't they get themselves together enough to be able to take care of me? Like my life would be so different. Like I wouldn't have to admire these things about other people, and want these things and aspire for this or work so hard to achieve the things that, I wanted if you were here, However, I would not change my story for anything in the world because it made me exactly who I am. And I am the biggest youth advocate. I have kids from all over, like all over the world whose lives have been impacted, changed, shifted, like they've grown, their families, their parents, because of that core wound. I became i became joy, right? You ever
Mhm.
seen the movie,
Yeah.
what's it called,
Inside Out.
yeah, Inside Out.
Yeah.
I became Joey, like, and
Mhm.
you see in the movie she struggles to, accept, like, wait a minute, I can't make this a happy moment, so like that was a struggle for me, like trying to accept, like, okay, I can't put it all back together. I have to let this person fall. I have to let this person go, or, you know, um, but forgiveness was one of my biggest lessons, my biggest teachers. Um, and it helped me to understand that people are just people. Like we are only human. And so I cannot fault my mother or father or sister or brother or anyone connected to me, any of the people that I love most dearly, any more than I fault myself. Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, it taught me everything about myself. At first, like I said, it was the driving factor in my life. I was like, I never want to be like this. I'll never do this and ABC, and like this is the person that I'm gonna be, and um, because there were many things that I had to learn by myself. There were lots of experiences that I had to go through alone, that I held. Um, until I had the verbiage, the language, and that I was able to sit down with folks that I cared about and say, like, hey, look, this thing happened to me, and like it changed me. Like this thing happened, and it hurt me. Like the thing that you did, like that really, it not only hurt me, but it kind of, it what I want to say, like it kind of stagnated me in some ways. I had to really
Mhm.
work for that. I did the therapy. I'm not a therapist who does not go to therapy. Me personally, I don't believe in that. To each his own. But me, like I did the work and I'm still doing the work every single day. I
Yeah.
am not perfect, So that's a little bit about my early stages, and some of the people who had a huge impact on my life. All of it, like the good and the in between, right? So
Yeah.
my sister. My aunt Valencia, my brother's my best friend, Keanu, um, who always helped me to be understood, to feel seen and heard. My sister Ayana, who had a journey of her own of, learning and unlearning and finding her way back to herself, and being that, she's my older sister, being able to see her come into that new version of, herself. And she's had some recent achievements in life, and I'm so proud of her. Um, my mother for healing.
Mhm.
Oh man. I'm so proud of my mom. I'm so proud of her because it wasn't easy. Like it wasn't easy. And she didn't have to do it. She could have, like so many people do, like choose themselves and only themselves forever. And she didn't do that. Like
Yeah.
down to, my past relationships, like folks that I've been in it with, and like who have betrayed me, and those that have loved me, those that taught me about love, the friendships that didn't work out, like it all had an influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a and we can think about like a seed if it's blown in the wind never chooses where it's planted, right?
Right.
And I mean we've seen trees grow in the harshest conditions and it still thrives and it still figures things out and it still has the
Absolutely.
ability. And when we think to our very human experience, I had heard from a friend that was like, forgiveness is for giving's sake. And
Mhm.
it's so,
That's
it's such a
good.
good perspective
Yeah.
of how we view forgiveness,
Mhm.
of it's you're giving back a lesson that you then understood and turned into wisdom. And
Absolutely. That hurt
um
like hell.
yeah, yeah, right. I mean, but we learn things hurt like hell. If we're so quick to see the physical things. If you trip and you fall down and you scrape your knee, you look back and like, oh, what did I trip on?
Right.
Oh, I tripped on that rock there. Okay, I won't
Mhm.
step on that again. I won't trip
Yeah.
on that again. But life scenarios and situations are much the same of what we trip on, so to
Mhm.
say. And it sounds like your sister was a beautiful influence and
Absolutely.
allowed you to feel seen, felt, or heard to then nourish your growth. And yeah, that growth is infinite. It never ends. It's whether we choose growth, and to see ourselves grow. So I wouldn't doubt one bit that your forgiveness to your mother helped her with her own healing
Everyone.
journey.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were moments where I had to forgive everyone,
Hmm.
like we've all been hurt by the people that we love in some ways, and then we've all hurt the people that we love and others. So yeah,
Hmm.
forgiveness definitely has been the largest part of my story. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I mean, even the strongest roots meet storms, right?
Absolutely.
And those storms and how whether we stay rigid and break or if we're flexible and allow the bending.
Hmm.
And I'm going to bring in just a recent we had an extreme ice storm recently, and that ice storm took down massive branches and massive parts of the trees around, but we know that the tree still grows. The roots
Right.
underground are still
Yeah.
growing,
That
and
stuff
that's
ain't going nowhere.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's my favorite part of the tree and the
Right.
metaphor of that when a tree breaks and it still grows, right?
Hmm.
And so what's a moment where you faced that real test and one moment when you could have stayed small or broken, but something inside you chose to keep growing?
Man, my life is full of roller coasters that have their own, like minds of their own. It's hilarious how much like every day is okay, what today? You know, so I have this like very kind of resilient mindset because folks like what there's always something, it's really always something. But I've learned to sit with the joy in that though, because I'm not allowed to experience that, and find the gratitude um in what it is that, is in front of me. So a moment in particular like that. Hmm.
And this may help a bit of what did it feel like at your lowest point?
Hmm. Okay. Um, I would say one of the lowest points in my life was actually pretty recent. Um, I had an accident earlier this year, and it significantly impacted my life. I walked away, I lived to kind of tell the story and everything, and um, I'm grateful for all that came with it. Um, I left with a severe concussion, um, and it it put me in a space where I had to face the reality of not being able to take everybody with me when I'm going. And that broke my heart.
Mm.
That like shattered me. But, like not to a point where I can't, sit before you and genuinely smile and tell you that I am the best version of myself that I've been my entire life. Um, but it kind of took that struggle. It took that fight to be healthy again. It took that kind of like exhaustion of like, why me?
Mm.
Like that question of like, why did I have to go through this? Like as good as I am and as hard as I'm trying, and like I know it's not my fault, but like why this? Why now? Um and I sat with that until it turned into why not?
Mm.
Or you, don't get me wrong. You're Azsha Ray, you know who you are and everything. But like in the sight of like, God, like who are you to not experience that, to not have dealt with that? And it also highlighted, and this was another thing that like really like took the cake for me. It highlighted all the things that I thought were healed about myself that are not, and that I realize are every day for the rest of my life going to be an ongoing process of, hey, check that. Hey, that wasn't very nice. Uh, you probably should never do that again, like, and this lessons, you know what I mean? About me, like, wait, whoa, I could be that person. Yeah, you're not perfect, and you can only get to that perspective by sitting in front of yourself, by sitting with yourself and being in constant conversation with yourself. So ultimately, I would say understanding on the deepest level to date the reality of my journey, and
Mm.
who's going to be on it. And if I'm going to decide every day for the rest of my life to be the version of myself that I'm called to be, or if I'm going to hang on to what was, you know? So, yeah.
I love that what you just said there of the constant conversation with myself. And I don't think we do that enough to have that self-awareness of yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And check yourself and just look at yourself first,
Mhm.
to check that you're aligned with those core values and who you are. And to that point you just pointed out of like the trunk is what's there, your core, who you are
Yep.
to your core, right? And those conversations with yourself to check of like what roots of yours are you continue to keep grow, and are those roots are going to help us grow upwards, right? Or outward
Absolutely. Yep.
in that space. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that of, conversation with yourself. And that's so very beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. And
Absolutely.
I see this incredibly strong core and trunk, and from that, then let's talk about your branches that reach out to the world, and where have you seen your work and your leadership and way of being that makes the biggest impact?
Beautifully said. Thank you for asking. Um, uh, from young, from a little girl to now, you know, being an adult, going over all the things that I've given in this life, the the things that I've been a part of, that I've had the pleasure to be, included in, the people that I've met. Oh man, the amount of impact that I've had just within my community, you know, I could write a book, and I did. Um, and I'm writing more, which is really cool. The book that I wrote, and I would not have the official copy on me today, but it's called Dear Little Black Girl. Um, and this is a poetry book that I wrote as a letter to myself, but also a letter to the rest of the little Black girls down on the inside of Black women and women alike, because there's something about being a Black woman that is so intricate that it has to be also intricately understood.
Mm.
And so, with that being said, sometimes that experience does need to be explained. Um, to folks who don't necessarily have that experience, right? Our counterparts and things. And um, it was just a letter. And it's funny the way that it came about, because I actually wrote it maybe a week or two after the accident. I wrote it this past year, back hmm, in the end of January. At the end of January, I released sometime after that. And it is a compilation of stories of my life, but not limited to, right? So folks that I've met, their experiences, without being too, invasive, intrusive, but telling you the doggone truth. Like,
Mhm.
you read it, you feel it. You feel the experience and the story of another, person, you know. you're engulfed into this reality of, oh, so that's what it's like. If you fall outside of those lines, right? If you fall outside of that territory. And it also highlights just all the beauty of it, right? Like every branch that like struggled to kind of sprout, but then made it out, right? But then got like wrapped in a vine, right? So it made things a little bit more complicated. So that branch then had to maneuver, maybe even broke off, but then grew back, right? So it is a beautiful story. It's a very short read. There's about 24 pages in total, and it's meant to be chewed and easily, slowly digested. It's not meant to just be, sped through. Um, but yeah, that's one of the things that I've done. One of my most like recent accomplishments, and to see, oh man, to see that that is the start of, you know, just another stream of passive income for myself, one that I'll be able to pass on. And this is just the beginning. It literally says that in the book. And I'll leave that for anticipation, but there's something else, another surprise in the book. um I've done that. I'm also writing another book um that is called Full Circle Phoenix. That is
Mm.
the story of my life. That is the
Okay.
actual, like page to page, chapter to chapter story of my life. But it's sort of written as journal entries because it's the actual. So when I mentioned like in constant conversation with yourself, I was actually referring to a like practice that I have done for a very long time, for at least minimum like 6 years. I've written in gratitude journals. Right. And then it's funny because I've got like 6 years worth of those journals that I can reference 9 times out of 10. Say I'm having a bad day. Say I just want a little, like, I don't know, like pick me up, or like I'm happy and I just want to like review, like, hey, like what's going on in the last like 3 years of your life. I can go back to a specific day in my journal and it'll be the same day. It's so crazy. Sometimes like I'll literally flip to the same day, ironically, and I'll read the same day from maybe 2 3 years ago, maybe five, maybe six, and it shows in that entry how I got through most of the time, like the same thing that I was going through at the time, but now on a different level, on a different scale, bigger scale, larger scale. And it's so amazing. So
Mhm.
I'm super excited for folks to get, a taste of that. Um, I have worked with countless families, bridging the gaps in communication, helping them to see the great, attributes about each other and working through the more difficult. I pride myself in that. I that is nearest and dearest to my heart because I have always valued family. From as long as I can remember. That is most important to me. They might get on your nerves sometimes, but at the end of the day, you love them to death, and
Yeah.
that's just what it is. They come first. So that's been a big area in my life. The therapy that I've done, in my community, the kids that I've helped. Oh, they're my heart. They're my like, just like, they're my everything. Those are my babies, from the littles all the way up through, like college age. I've worked with those guys, coaching, life coaching, basketball, community events. I actually have a community event coming up May 17th with, I do this yearly partnership with an organization called ACBB. They are a Cape Verdean men's league. and we put together a tournament each year, and they allow me to come in and do life skills with the kids. Typically high school age boys. I think we'll have more girls this year. I'm super excited for that. And I've done that faithfully. And those are the types of things that like make me come alive. Those are the types of things that like help me, that keep me up at night and wake me up in the morning. Like, okay, what more am I gonna plan for this? And so yeah, my organization, my nonprofit organization, which is called Autonomy, which basically means, you know, the ability to think for yourself, to aspire to things outside of just what the box that the world might place you in. You know, like you have your own self-government, you can do whatever it is that you put your mind to. You do not have to follow the crowd. That organization is dedicated to youth, you know, and so that is all the community service and things that I do with kids and, you know, families alike. And that's the organization, that and then my life coaching companies that will be partnering with ACBP, their care team. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, their care program. Thank you.
And if I may, I'd love to be able to bring back like even your writing and
Absolutely.
the impact of writing, and very much so of that encouragement of reflecting, because there's no way we can memorize what happens to us, and we know that the winds and the weather changes. There's no way that you're going to remember the weather from a year ago from today.
Right.
And when we journal those of going back, and when we can look back at it of like that reflection of, one, am I in that same cycle and nothing has changed? Or
Right.
two, that reflection of like, oh wow, I was in this same situation, look how much I've grown.
Yes.
Right. And being able to do that, and the power of writing and journaling alone, and activating that creativity in us of when it helps release, and then it helps reactivate that creativity. And I was hoping to maybe capture, do you have a poem that's near and dear that you can share on this, and reading what?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was
um
actually hoping that you would ask for
yeah,
sure. Let's see. I am going to read I Love You because that's the flow of the conversation. So, all right. I love you. I love you, little black girl. I love the way your hair kinks, swallowing up combs and all the water in the bathroom sink. I love your skin, from the deepest shade of rich, creamy chocolate to the crystallized hexagonal wax cells of honeycomb complexions. I love you fully, with every fiber of my being, every word and syllable necessary to complete that sentence. I love the way you love our black men, broken men, some of them. You love with no conditions, while the conditions of love are placed on you. You grew from concrete jungles, lost in another dimension. Did I forget to mention how forgiving your heart is? Despite all the pain the world caused you, still you give cheerfully. If only you knew the walls that would crumble at your feet. All the little girls around the world just like you that would travel from miles away just to hear you tell your story. Let the journey teach you life, joy, hope. Give God the glory as he deserves the utmost. He walks with you everywhere you go. Fear not when striding through unfamiliar doorways. When you feel out of place, remember who sent you. In times flooded with uncertainty, remind yourself of your worth. You are essential. Gift yourself flowers. Live a purposeful life. perform at your highest potential. Be sure to keep filling cups to the brim and let his love runneth over. You are precious, but he also made you powerful. The key is to balance your innermost delicacy with that of a soldier.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
I feel like I have a tear down my face. But your innermost delicacy, that of a soldier, like
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Yes. The key is to balance your innermost delicacy with that of a soldier. Yes. That, as a Black woman, as a woman of color, you are assumed to be strong. Your number one compliment is you're so strong, you know?
Mm.
And although it's true and it's wonderful to know, sometimes we are not.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're weak. And sometimes Black women need help. And
Mhm.
sometimes Black women need a lot of help, more than they are willing to ask for, or because we have been assumed strong so long, more than we even know how to ask for it. And that would seem so simple maybe to folks, but it's really not.
I could not agree more in that, and that space of it really reminds me of I had a CEO say, "Oh, you're the most resilient person I know."
Mhm.
And that actually, hearing her say that, like, how much it actually hurts the other person of like, but why don't I feel that way?
Right.
And in those spaces of being able to be vulnerable, of like, they see and need our strength so
Mhm.
much, and what we do to make sure that we hold on to that strength,
Right.
and how hard it is to protect and hang on to it, to be very deliberate and intentional
Right.
to how we give away that strength.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a very beautiful poem. And where can they get that? Your little book of poems?
Yeah, it's on Amazon, so I can attach the information and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Dear Little Black Girl, a poetry book written by Azsha Ray.
So beautiful, and definitely we'll share it in the link here as well. And
Awesome.
I very much look forward. I think when someone has the courage to take their story and share it with others, it you know it will attract the right people and the ones that it will help.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and your tree is already so strong of those seasons that you've endured, and it, like, no tree stays the same. And
Yeah.
the Enzo mindset is around its imperfection and impermanence to anything in life,
Right.
and it's cyclic in nature. And we hear "and so," and I realized how much it mirrored "and so," and those "and so" moments are the ones where we're connecting the stories and the lessons that we learned,
Right.
turn it into wisdom.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's what it's all about.
yeah, exactly, right? Right, we shed our leaves, we need periods of rest.
Right.
We need that rest in order to bloom again and be able to
Absolutely.
create the fruit that we'll give away. And having those seasons that you have had, so many seasons that you've gone through that cycle.
Right.
And this has been a beautiful story to share.
Thank
So
you.
really, I think this is a greatest way to really close out. And what I want to give the opportunity of, like, what's your number one thing that you want to leave for your message to your listeners?
My number one message would be find your hope. So find your why, right? Because that is going to be the driving factor of your life. And so to start, it might be something that, you never want to be, you never want to do, you never want to experience, or someone you never want to be like. But find your why in the healed version of yourself.
Mm.
I found that through the people in my life who helped me, the folks that I met along the way, the families that adopted me. People in my life like my adopted mom, Maxine, and sisters um, within the church. That's where I found my community. Um, People that love me authentically for exactly who I am, not who I was, not the mistakes that I made. And even when, those same people may have caused hurt, like we figure those things out, so find your why. And the way that you find it, honestly, I think the only way to it is to find your alignment with God.
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
has been my number one way and journey and walk.
I love that you say to find your why, and the Enso mindset is aligning your why, uh, and finding who to the core of who you are, and aligning it with your daily actions and intentions, and your purpose, to bring, and to what you'll give away and give back. So it's so very beautiful. Azsha, it's been such an amazing conversation to have with you, and you can tell the impact that you are already making in your
Absolutely.
communities, and continue connecting, and your confidence will breed into other little Black girls, and not just Black girls,
Yeah,
those of your community will
absolutely.
that you will connect with. And so I really want to thank everybody for joining us here today and sharing the story
Yeah.
of Azsha and this beautiful ray of sunshine. And stay tuned for another.
Thank you so much.